Over the past 2 years, I've generated $1.7 million in high ticket sales deals. I've worked for e-commerce trading companies. I've worked for marketing agencies. Not only that, I've trained sales teams. I've trained setter teams, closers. I've also helped beginners make their first bit of money through closing. And in today's video, I want to break down to you the 5 biggest mistakes that I have seen from starting out, training these people and being in this space for 2 years. So let's dive right into it. So first things first, if I bring up this board here, what are the top 5 biggest mistakes to avoid starting out in high ticket sales? So first things first is role and skill, right? And I'm going to go through each one. I'm going to talk about the expectation, the belief trap, the reality, and how you can fix this problem if you are starting out yourself, right? So first things first is role over skill. Right. And this is super important, right? Everyone says land the role first and figure out the rest later. So the first mistake is people believe that they need to be focusing on landing a role a lot more than their skill set. So the expectation is that you land your role, and people make out once you land your role, you'll figure out the rest later. You'll figure out your sales as you go. And the belief trap is, look, once I get hired, I'll just start working on my skill set. Then I'll start becoming a better setter or a closer at that point, once I actually have a job and I'm hired. But the reality is the best offers go to the guys with the best skill set. Even if you manage to get yourself onto a job somehow and you have a bad skill set, once you're on that job, guess what? You're going to lose it pretty quick, right? This is a pretty cutthroat industry. So if you don't perform, you will lose your job, right? You won't then have the opportunity to make the money. So if you go in thinking, right, I'm just going to go for the job, right, and not work on the skill set, then either way, it's not going to work out for you. So how you can fix this is you can start planting the seeds right away to begin with on learning the skill set. So this is the way I teach it to my guys, is that yes, landing a job is important, but you also need to be working on the skill set. Start smashing role plays straight away. Start going through frameworks, scripts, learning as much as possible, absorbing as much information as you can, so that when you do get that opportunity, and it does come, which it will, you can then smash it out the park and do really well. And you're not then stuck wondering, how do I actually close or how do I actually set? So that's the first one. Second one is surface level BS, right? What is the expectation? When you're a closer, people say, look, you don't want to ruffle any feathers. You don't want to make anyone angry on a sales call, right? You don't want to challenge anyone. And look, and the belief trap is, like, if I ask tough questions, they won't like me and they're not going to buy from me. But that couldn't be further from the truth, right? Deep questions results in a deep impact, which is going to result in cash, which is going to result in a close, right? If you just go through a very surface level, the likelihood someone's actually going to close is very, very low. And I can tell you this from firsthand experience with myself, and also loads of the guys that I've trained, that when you keep it surface level and you want to be the guy who's liked, you won't close and you won't make a lot of money. I made this mistake myself as a beginner, and it wasn't until I actually started to challenge prospects on what they were saying, really challenge the way that they thought and their belief systems. That's when I actually started to make a lot of money in this space. So again, the fix is aim to ask prospects questions they have never been asked before in their life. That's what I tell my guys. In the back of your mind, you should be thinking, right, throughout the sales call, I'm going to ask this person things they've never been asked before. That way, you're way more likely to get a close. But also, let's say worst case scenario, you don't get the close. Maybe you go for a follow-up, right? And sometimes that's going to happen. They're way more likely to remember you if you are asking them questions that they've never been asked before. And I can tell you again, firsthand, I've collected hundreds of thousands in follow-ups. And a lot of those follow-ups come because I ask very, very good questions in the discovery. So again, very, very important that you do that. Next up is objection obsession, right? And this is such a big one. Everyone says you need to focus on objection handling. Mastering rebuttals is the key to closing. Discovery doesn't matter. If you get to the end of the call and you know how to objection handle, then you're going to make a lot of money. If I say the right line I learned on YouTube at the end of the video, at the end of the sales call, then I'm going to get the sale. I'm going to make the money. This is fucking bullshit. This is not true. And again, this is coming from someone who has done this. I've been through this myself. I spent hours and hours learning frameworks and word tracks for objections, and they just don't work, right? If you don't do the discovery correctly, then guess what? You're not going to close anyone. People aren't just going to magically buy if you give them a reframe at the end of a call, right? So how do you solve this? You pre-handle objections, right? If you can pre-handle objections in the discovery, objections disappear at the end. It becomes a hell of a lot easier to handle any objections that may come up if you pre-handle everything beforehand, right? And I know that sounds, it's easier said than done for sure. And it's a skill to be able to pre-handle objections, but it's super, super important that you do it. If you want my framework on how to pre-handle objections, just comment pre-handle and I will send it across to you for free. Objections, right? And if we go to the fix here, objections have roots, right? Dig them up early. That's the point, right? If someone in the discovery that there's red flags, you're thinking, right, this guy doesn't seem very committed. He seems to be blaming other things. Dig that objection up now. Do not just wait until the end. Don't think, oh, you know what, we'll handle that later. That is the worst thing you can do. You want to dig up as many of these objections now so that, again, when it gets to the end of the call, they're in the mindset of buying already. You know, you've pre-handled all those objections. So it means you're not going to have that face-to-face rebuttal, that collision that a lot of people end up having when they don't pre-handle properly. Right. Next up is activity without intention. Right. Staying busy is progress. You know, I'm doing lots of stuff, so I'm improving. And I guess this is a rule for anything in life, but especially in sales. And I see it a lot with beginners. When you're beginning out in high ticket sales, you need to be doing volume, right? As I said, you need to learn a skill set, but you also need to land a job. So you need to be working on both of these tirelessly, right? You need to be doing role plays, smashing, looking at scripts, doing as much practice as you can. You also need to be applying to as many roles as you can. You need to be doing outreach to business owners. You need to be applying to pipelines to try and get yourself, you know, getting as many fingers in as many pies as you can so that an opportunity will come up for you. The problem is that sales reps, when they begin, they will think they're busy. They'll think they're doing things right, but they're not doing the needle moving tasks, right? You need a role and a skill set. Everything else is fluff, right? So do the needle movers, as I say here: role play, outreach, and networking. Those three things, if you do those three things properly with the right strategies, then you will land a job quickly. And not only that, but you'll be ready for that job because you would have done your role plays, you would have done your practice alongside it. Those three things are the most important. If you do those three things and you do nothing else, you'll do better than 90% of sales reps, especially beginners who are coming in, right? So if you want to know more about that strategy, you know, you're probably thinking, what do you mean role play, outreach, and network? That's so broad, Ben. If you want a more in-depth, right, training on exactly how you can do these things to land better roles, then I've left a link in the description of this video. Basically explains exactly what high ticket sales is. You can apply to work one-on-one with me, and yeah, I can see if I can help you. Again, absolutely no pressure, but if you want to speed this process up, then you can do that. And finally is the comfort delusion, right? 10K in 90 days. This is what everyone promises you. All these online gurus, you know, people like myself doing these YouTube videos claiming that it's super easy. Bullshit. Do not believe these people. 10K in 90 days is very unlikely to happen, right? If I'm struggling, I must not be cut out for this. That's what people think. You know, they're sold the dream, they get started and they think, fuck, this is actually pretty hard. I don't think I'm cut out for this. All these other guys are making 10K in 90 days. You know, why can't I do it? I'm not good enough. It's because most of these people aren't making 10K in 90 days. You know, they're selling the dream to you. So don't worry. It's okay. It's meant to be hard. Every failure is a stepping stone getting you closer to where you want to go. Every failed interview, every job that wasn't as good as you thought it was, every mess up in role play, every no is getting you closer to a yes. Every failure is getting you closer to where you want to go. So it's super important that you have this mindset, because if you keep that in your head and you stay strong with it, then I promise you'll do really, really well. Again, reframe each setback as you getting a step closer to where you want to go. It's honestly, sales and high ticket sales is a massive mindset game. If you are consistent, right, for one, and you have a strong will behind you and you realize that, again, this isn't an overnight thing, then you'll do really, really well. And if you follow the right steps, then you're going to smash it. Awesome. Well, look, those are my top 5 biggest mistakes that I want you to avoid starting out and getting into high ticket sales. If you have any other questions for me about anything, you can just message me on Instagram. More than happy to give you as much free value as possible. And yeah, I hope that was useful, and look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Cheers.